Welcome into another exciting edition of Locked On 76ers podcast. That's Keith Pompey. I'm Marc Farzetta. Nick Nurse is a name we've barely talked about over the last couple of weeks. We've talked about more TJ DeLeo than we've talked Nick Nurse. So when it comes to the 76ers head coach, what's the one thing he's got to do that he has control of to put his squad in the best possible position to have success? We'll talk about that and more when we return. This is Locked On 76ers podcast on the Locked On Sixers YouTube channel.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we do thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. So make sure you guys like and subscribe to all things Locked On 76ers, all things Locked On Sports, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use promo code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Keith, what we got to get into today? Nick Nurse, the one thing, the Nurse need, if you will. Also, we did, I thought, Keith, a public service yesterday with our show when we said, all right, you're going to hear some stuff about Ben Simmons, whether that's Sixers bring him back. Let's just let you know where we stand on all that. No, just no. Daryl Morey, don't you dare. And somehow, Keith, there was actually quite a lot more than I anticipated. People saying, no, you could totally bring back Ben Simmons, total fit, all that. I was shocked by all that. And then something else we're going to get into today, something you addressed in your Inquirer.com piece on the 76ers and the trade deadline, what it would take to potentially move on from Paul George and Joel Embiid, and how it's a double-edged sword. My take on it, it's a double-edged sword. We'll talk about all that more on today's show. But Keith, let me just ask you this question. We haven't focused a lot on Nick Nurse. We've talked a lot about this lineup. We talked a lot about guys needing to be healthy. We've talked a lot about Joel Embiid and the article that came out on ESPN.com and all that. But when we talk about the head coach here, Keith, if you had to say one thing that Nick Nurse needs to do, I have a few ideas, but I want to know from you. The one thing Nick Nurse needs to do with this squad in this upcoming season to put him in the best possible position to have success that he has control of, that's the caveat, what would it be?
You know, to me personally, the one thing I would say is, find a way of getting more people involved. Like we all know that it's going to be about Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid if he's healthy, Paul George as the third star. But, you have to find a way to get people more involved. And when I go back to the first season, 2023-24 season, in the beginning of the season, that ball was moving. I mean, it was now, again, Joel Embiid and Maxey were getting their points. They were the leading scorers, of course, but they got everyone else involved. They all felt like a part of the success. And people forget they lost their first game to the Milwaukee Bucks, 118-117. And then all of a sudden, they went on an 8-game winning streak. They won 8-1. They started off strong where they were 10-3, right? 10-3. But to me, after that, it just seemed like the ball started sticking gradually, So to me, the one thing is he has to find a way to keep other players involved. Like we know what Quentin Grimes can do, right? If given a chance, right? We know what, Kelly Oubre, we know he can attack the rim. We know what Jared McCain can do. I feel like one of the biggest problems that he had was just having guys standing in the corner and not being involved. And the coach, that's up to him to draw plays to get these guys, incorporated into the offense, because I feel like once they feel like a part of everything, everything's going to go smooth.
That's interesting. Getting everybody involved, sharing the basketball, and there's going to be plenty of opportunity to do that with the thing that he doesn't have control of, unfortunately, which is the health of Joel Embiid and Paul George. So again, the caveat here is Nick Nurse is not, lay his hands upon Paul George and Joel Embiid and all of a sudden they're going to be healthy. So this is all stuff within his control. I love that, getting everybody involved, and I think it plays into what I need to see from Nick Nurse this year, which is player development. Yeah. Now, one of the things you can look at with Nick Nurse, and it's other than the quadruple doink, Keith, My other takeaway from that, the way that ended in Toronto, was all the praise that Pascal Siakam was getting. And Nick Nurse just laid it out bluntly in, I believe it was that post-game press conference. And everyone was giving the praise to Pascal. And he just said, look, this guy came to me after his rookie year and said, okay, how do I get better? What do I need to do? And they laid out a plan for him to work on his shooting. And look, you can lay out all the plans you want. Unless you have that player, Keith, that is actually going to execute that plan in the offseason. So they actually shoot better from the outside. They show better aggression on the offensive side of things in general. And their defense, not that his defense ever had to get monumentally better, but it still needed to improve somewhat from a young player to what he is now. He did all of it. He checked every box. I'm not going to compare the young guys on this roster to Pascal Siakam because I don't feel like that's fair. I don't want to put that pressure on him. I don't want player comps. I don't like player comps. But the bottom line is you have VJ Edgecombe, all reports, everything we know about him, willing to work. Tyrese Maxey. I'll never forget the story of him and Doc Rivers where he said, all right, at the end of the season, what do I need to do? And Doc Rivers said, well, how about you go on vacation, man? Like, take a break. This is the day after it all ended. And then you also have Jared McCain, who has now had to work his way back from injury. And then you're probably going to have Quentin Grimes as well. We're going to assume that for the time being. These are guys that are fighting for their NBA careers or a guy that's looking to solidify his NBA legacy as to what he could be for his entire career in Tyrese Maxey. These are four guys, at least, Keith, that are very much willing to work. Three of them very young guys. So when you talk about the thing he needs to do, he needs to insert himself to make sure that these guys, these young guys, their work ethic is not going to waste. They're being very efficient in their practice time, and they're doing everything they possibly can to take the Maxian leaps that we have seen from Tyrese Maxey. I want to see them with VJ. I want to see that with McCain. I want to see it with Quentin Grimes even when he comes back. I want to see it with all these guys. So for me, the number one thing to put this team in the best possible position, with or without Paul George, with or without Joel Embiid, is to be more of a teacher with this team than a coach, especially on the practice court.
Yeah, that's a great one because when you look at it, you know, we talk about you said everyone's not going to be a Pascal Siakam, but no offense to Pascal Siakam, but who was Pascal Siakam when he first came into the league? Like no one expected him to be as good as he is, right?
Absolutely.
You look at, you know, Fred VanVleet. You know, he was a undrafted point guard out of Wichita State. Right now, you look at him. Now he's a max playing all-star point guard for the Houston Rockets. And then it goes deeper than that. There was another guy by the name of Chris Boucher, you know, who was in 2017. He goes to Toronto as an undrafted skinny power forward. And right now he's the longest tenured guy on the team. So, you know, now is he a star? No, he's a role player. He's a valuable role player. He's kind of like, you know, a utility guy for him, a junkyard dog, so to speak. But these are guys who Nick Nurse developed, all three of them. And then you look at it, you know, they do have a pretty good development staff. You know, TJ DeLeo, we all know him now as the G League coach, but really he's a player development coach who works well with these guys, you know, who has Rico Hines. They have Rico Hines open runs. He's a bench coach, but he's actually a player development coach. So that tells you that he's getting paid well. He's doing all these other things. So to me, that is key. They got to develop these guys. I mean, you know, you went out there and you know, Nick Nurse is the reason why Jabari Walker's here. He's the reason why that you know, that what's his name? Trendon Watford is here, right? Salas is here. You know, he's the one who made those phone calls. So it's up to him and his development staff to follow what they did in Toronto and turn these guys into undrafted players into kind of sort of quality role players that the 76ers are going to need moving forward.
The thing is, when you talk about these player development guys, developmental guys, when you talk about these guys, they're all working with athletes that are known for their work ethic already. I mean, even VJ Edgecombe, who's not a proven NBA commodity yet, one of the reasons the Sixers wanted him is because this guy just is a gym rat. And I always love hearing that about these guys. Oh, he's a gym rat. You know, he gets his, you know, 1,000 shots in a day, like that kind of thing. And I love that about these types of players. So there's no excuse like, oh, this guy just all of a sudden got to the NBA and got lazy. I don't see it. I don't see it with the 3 guys that I've talked about, 4 guys, including Maxey. We certainly know it from Maxey. But when you talk about Pascal Siakam, to go back to him for a second, I am curious. Look, all the credit in the world goes to the player to get better because they're the ones that really have to put in the time. But as far as the plan put in place for the player to execute in the offseason, how much of that do you give credit to Nick Nurse and giving that player that much room to grow?
I give Nick Nurse credit for that, but I also give the culture that they had at that time and the players who were on the team. I mean, we think about it. He was like the 5th starter on their championship team. But also, yeah, you had Nick Nurse, but I mean, think about it. You had Kyle Lowry at his prime. He was in the midst of 6 consecutive All-Star bursts. He was Olympic gold medalist. Kawhi Leonard comes in there, the glove, who's, a man of few words, but his work ethic is off the chain. Mm-hmm. Anybody who knows Danny Green, what Danny Green brings to the table. Marc Gasol shows up. I mean, we're talking about at least 3 Hall of Famers that was in the same starting lineup as him. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, that's what it is. So when you have that type of culture, that type of veteran leadership, you're only going to get better. I mean, now the thing about Pascal, everybody talks about Joel Embiid's story, but Pascal Siakam's story was a little bit similar too, to whereas he was a late bloomer. And I think that I've told you this before, and maybe I said it on the podcast. I mean, this dude was in monastery school. Like he was going to be a priest, man. He was going to be a priest. Like that's what he was going to do. And he didn't like basketball. And then it was one of those things where he went out there and they had a hoop. And in his free time, he was getting buckets, just shooting the ball. So then all of a sudden he goes to a school that has a basketball and he was trash, but then he got better, right? I mean, seriously. And he got better. But so to me, it's kind of like he had to have some natural ability that had to be fine-tuned because he was a late bloom. I mean, not a late bloomer. He got a late start. Mm-hmm. But with that being said, I think that Nurse helped out. But also when you have Kyle Lowry in his prime, Kawhi Leonard, Marc Gasol, who came on late, Danny Green. And Danny Green is another guy who was self-made, right? So when you look at those type of people, it's only going to benefit Pascal and Fred, OG, other guys, Chris Boucher, all of them. They all benefited from having these dudes and, leading the way.
Mm-hmm. Now, look, I feel like we always have to have the caveat in here, and I'm sorry to do this again, Keith, but this is all under this is accepting the general thought that you're not going to have Paul George and Joel Embiid 100% healthy throughout this entire year. Now, we're all hoping for it. We're all rooting for it. I don't think any of us are betting on it, unfortunately. So when we talk about Nick Nurse, it's not like, oh, Nick Nurse does this and now they're contenders. No, this is Nick Nurse does this, and this team is in the best possible position so that when you do have PG back, when you do have Joel Embiid starting up his season, they're, again, in the best possible position to have success. Now, Keith, when we come back, I'm going to read a couple of these off to you, and some of these are bananas. These are comments from yesterday's show, and we even took comments during the show yesterday about people willing to take Ben Simmons back in Philadelphia. I still say that's crazy talk, but I want to acknowledge it so people know we're not just throwing this out of nowhere. People actually want him back, not just your crazy friend in your friend group. People in amongst the Sixers fan base. We'll talk about that when we return. This is Locked On 76ers and Locked On Sixers YouTube channel. And let me tell you about the Gametime app. Want to go to a game, concert, comedy show? Gametime app has you covered. Ever decided at the last minute that you want to go to a ball game with family and friends? Maybe it's game day and you're like, wait a minute, I got to be there. I got to be at the big game. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without all the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merchandise, just about anything down there at the ballpark or the stadium. Gametime makes it all possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, tip-off, face-off, kickoff, whatever. Gametime app, by the way, is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB. So how about that? Gametime Zone Deal is the best way to get your seats. And you can also view your seats before you buy them. So you literally take the guesswork out of buying tickets. So download the Gametime app today. Create an account. Use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Once again, create an account. Use promo code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So look at this. I'm looking at some of these comments from yesterday's show, and I'm seeing the comments pop off. We had about, let's see, we had a total, Keith, yesterday of 86 comments.
Wow.
Okay, which is a good amount for our program. I know Ben Simmons thinking about what Kobe told him. Says between Deshaun, I think it is the name there. I assume that's motivational. Do you have any idea what that is? I would assume it's motivational.
Yeah, but like you can't go. But I mean, that's what the guy said. I believe what Kobe told him.
Yeah, Mamba mentality.
Yeah, but you got to realize something. Kobe Bryant stayed in the gym. I love Ben Simmons.
Yeah,
but Ben Simmons wasn't a really workout. Now Ben Simmons did these videos.
Yes.
These all season videos. But
Yes.
Ben Simmons wasn't like, he didn't have that work ethic that Kobe had. Unfortunately. So you can't say what Kobe told him. You know what it is? That's just like, you know how when your father, when you were a kid and your dad would tell you something and you're like, Dad, you don't know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? And it was like, and they had, you know what I mean? So when Kobe was yapping, it was like, okay, that's good for you.
Just in case Joe Farzetta is watching, Dad, I listened to every word. I caught every word. I was hanging on every word every time.
Well, me, I'm like, Dad, you don't know. You don't know. It's different. It's different. And he's like, okay, sure it is. You'll find out.
All right, how about this one? Gerald Babb saying, I never thought I would say it, but bring him back. Another pro, Ben Simmons. How about this? The Judah Priest, great name. Doc Rivers was to blame. Now we're blame shifting over all this. It's Doc Rivers' fault. This one I think is a joke. Bring back Ben Simmons, Shake Milton, and Markel Fultz. And this other one is the one that really made me laugh hard. Why not? We brought Lowry back. I do not see them in the same boat, even a little bit. Although after Kyle Lowry, Ben Simmons would be the closest thing this team had to a point guard.
Yeah,
it goes on. It goes on. I mean, there's a lot of like people that totally agree with us, obviously. But another one said, Edward says, let Mr. Simmons be a trial. Try him back here. But yes, he could definitely. Antonio Benton says, yes, he could definitely help on defense. The thing that I go back to, Keith, look, nobody knows Ben Simmons' ultimate skill set more than a 76ers fan. However, nobody knows Ben Simmons more than a 76ers fan. Yeah. So because of that, as I told you yesterday, we go back to the LSU days, and I'm watching him play, and I'm like, this guy does not give a damn about playing in college. This guy gives a damn about filming a documentary. This guy cares about being the number one overall pick. I kind of get why he wouldn't want to play in the NIT after they didn't qualify for the NCAA tournament. You kind of have a similar but not identical vibe to the Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey type of thing. Like, how are these guys top picks when they didn't take their team further, that kind of thing, or farther. So I caught myself in trying to argue the case that you'd want him back. I was saying all the same things that I was saying when he was at LSU. So it's the old saying, like, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Or shame, reverse that. I knew I was going to mess that up.
Yeah, you good.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I knew I always reverse that. Yeah.
Now, there's always shame on you.
Yeah.
There's always shame on you.
But always shame.
But listen, here's the deal. Like, personally, I would love to see Ben Simmons play for the Celtics. And I know people are going to kill me. But the thing is, like, to me, that's the perfect thing because, people here hate him. Well, it seems like some people love him. They want him back. But for the most part, people hate him. And that would be a great storyline. Because when he played for the Brooklyn Nets, let's keep it real. Like, no one cared about the Brooklyn Nets, especially after when KD and Kyrie left, right? So no one cared about it. Can you imagine the storyline, Ben Simmons, coming in off the bench for the Celtics, especially now. The Celtics might be a pretty good fit for him too, because of, if I'm him, I want to go there because of Sam Cassell. You know what I mean? You have Sam Cassell there who was developing him a little bit. Now, Ben will probably enjoy that. But here's the problem with Ben, and I think Ben's athleticism was a blessing in the coach, right? And and the reason why it was a blessing, like I kept telling everybody, if Ben Simmons was maybe 6'2", 6'3", he would be a pretty good NFL player. He'd probably be a tight end or a wide receiver or something like that. If Ben Simmons was 5'10", maybe a $160, $180, $70, he would be a soccer player, playing over in Europe. Like, no, seriously, right. He's that great of an athlete. But where it becomes a curse is that you're such a great athlete that you don't put in the work. And now all of a sudden, since you didn't put in the work, when you start getting the foot and the back and all this other injuries, the stuff that you didn't work, you don't have anything to rely on. Like, you say, okay, I got a nice jumper that I can go to. Nah, bro, you don't. Like, oh, I can do this. Nah, you can't. And when we talk about defense, like, defense has a lot to do with effort and athleticism and what you can do, right? Well, you were long, strong, athletic, so you could keep up with everyone. So now, like, even that takes a little bit of hit. Now, he's still a good defender, but at the same time, is he going to lock down Luka? Is he going to do all these other things that he used to? So I get it. A lot of fans are excited, and some people say they want him back. But do you want him back because you don't like what the Sixers have? Like, is it to the point where you look at Daryl Morey and say, Daryl, you didn't do enough? Well, Ben Simmons available. Let's just take let's just take a try at him. Because to me, it's one of those things where when people get a little frustrated, you look around and you just say, hey, I'll settle for this. But then when that person comes in, what happens if he passes up a shot? What happens if everybody backs off of him? What happens if you don't see that explosiveness that he had when he was here the first time? Well, the same people who wanted him are going to want him out of here. Like, they just like, get him out of here, get him out of here. So to me, I get it, but it was a circus, y'all. It became a circus. Do you really want to relive that or bring that back? And I don't even think the Sixers would deal with it, because when we're talking about it, not only did he say he wasn't going to play, it became some legal issues where they had to settle with him via court so he can get some of his money back. So do you want to, like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, I hate to say that before we talked about the batshit crazy girlfriend, but it's kind of like, you rekindling your flame, rekindling a flame with an ex-wife who basically took all your money, took the house, took the car, got more than half, all this alimony, and then all of a sudden she spent all her money. She spent all her money and then have a place to go, and then saying, you know what? I was wrong. I love you. I never stopped loving you. And you're like, okay, I think so. Nah, you don't do that. You just don't. It doesn't make any sense. Like, you don't go back to that. You don't.
Thank you. I needed that advice in my life right now, ironically. No, I'm kidding. No, everything's great. Everything's good. I will say this also, and it's along those same lines. It's one of those situations where if he went to Boston or anywhere not Philadelphia, and he was I'll use this term, great role player, great off the bench guy, looking like he might revitalize his career. Let's just say in the Ben Simmons world, it's the best possible position for him. It's the best possible situation for him. I'd be fine with it because it wouldn't happen here. It's one of those situations where, yeah, he could do that, but not in Philly, because you're right. The leash he would be on, Keith, even if Joel Embiid's playing at a great level and so is Paul George, the leash he would be on would be so unbelievably short. And not only would we see the the same type of mindset from Ben Simmons, but not as much production, not as good a defender, not as healthy. We're talking about a 30-year-old. By the time the season starts, Keith, we're talking about a 30-year-old with a bad back. Very rarely does that ever end well. Like, it's similar to a true 7-footer with a bad knee. That's not going to end well. Now we're talking about a guy 6'9", 6'10", with Ben Simmons, who a lot of his game, as you pointed out, was based on elite speed, even more elite athleticism. And we're talking about that guy being 30 years old with a bad back.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, if I'm him, I wouldn't want to come back. I mean, here's the thing. When he said how much he realized that he loved the 76ers, right? He said that at the end at one point last season.
Yeah. And the Sixers fans are great and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I took that as like, yo, I messed up. Like, I messed up. You know what I mean? Like, we really effed this thing up. Like, you know, I'm not saying a word, but seriously, that's what it, to me, it was. It was like, I really messed up. And then also, dang, I may not have a lot of options.
Right.
So let me come out and say this. Now, personally, when you think of, and I'm not calling him Bill Walton, because Bill Walton basically was an MVP. He led his team to a championship. But Bill Walton was able to go to Boston and play with elite players and have a niche. If I'm Ben Simmons, that's what I want to do. I want to go somewhere where I can grab rebounds. I can do the dirty stuff. I can play hard. I can do whatever. If you come back here, it's always going to be you're comparable to what you used to do.
Right.
And what you're doing now. Man, just go somewhere and be that guy. Like, I think Boston is the best fit for him because of that. Now, first of all, the team got rid of a lot of players, so it's going to be some playing time. Now, if he goes to New York, you know, he's going to have to battle Yabusele and other people for playing time, right? And we know how ball dominant that what's my man? What's the guy Nova? That guy, the Nova Nick leader, the guy. Dang, I feel crazy. Brunson.
Okay.
We know how ball dominant Brunson
Jalen
is.
Brunson.
So like, you ain't dribbling the ball, or you may a little bit, but you're going to be a power forward. So if I'm him, I'm going to Boston. Seriously, gotcha. I'm going to Boston. Gotcha. Yeah.
There's one reason actually I would want Ben Simmons back in Philadelphia, and it'd be a lot easier to schedule that behind the scenes fight between him and Kyle Lowry that they tried pulling all those years ago. You want to meet me in the back? I'll never forget that. Remember that?
Crazy though.
Meet me in the
Kyle
back.
Lowry was on a mission, dude.
Oh man,
mission. So look, Kyle was like, "I'll meet you in the back, right?"
Yeah. So let's see how this Aussie does against North Philly. Come on, man.
Nah, that stuff was crazy. But see, the funny part about that, who was it? Then people forget he almost got into it with Marcus Morris when we were in London.
Oh, that's
then the Kyle Lowry situation, and I'm like, bruh, do you know these dudes is like don't get me wrong, both of them are really nice guys. Really nice guys, like both of them. You know, I've known, it's funny, my cousin played with Kyle Lowry in high school and at Doherty. Doherty, Cardinal Doherty, right? But the thing is, and then I covered Marcus when he was, in high school. And like, it was funny because I was talking to a couple people on the Sixers at that time. I'm like, yo, these are nice guys, but they're not exactly the type you want to mess with, especially when you know they're going to be in Philly in the summertime.
Yeah.
Right?
No further comments.
Like,
no further comments.
Yeah.
The picture's been painted.
Yeah.
All right, we got to do a quick blink of a break. I'm sorry, I let this run. That's my fault. Blink of a break right here. And we're back just like this. Real quick, Keith, as we wind down, one question I do want to ask you here is about a question you got in your mailbag on inquiry.com, and it had to do with the possibility of trading Joel Embiid and Paul George. Now, it's a deadline decision, trade deadline for the upcoming season, deadline decision. The double-edged sword is if they're playing great, then they're not going to be traded. if they're playing great, you don't want to trade them. So you're going to try to win now. But if they're not playing great, they're basically going to be what they are right now, which is essentially untradeable. Is that a good box to view this in?
Yeah. Like, especially if they're playing great. Like I said, here's the thing. Like, in order for the 76ers to win a championship, you need Embiid and Paul George playing great, especially Embiid. And I feel like if you trade them, you're not going to get equal value for an MVP caliber Embiid. Now, I get it. You can also say, well, what if he's playing great this season and then he falls off the face of the earth the following seasons? Well, the Sixers know that their championship window is now. So they're trying to go all in now. And if he's playing well now and the Sixers are contenders, why would you get rid of him for like the final 20 games of the season? It just doesn't make sense. Now, maybe, you would probably say, well, what about after the season? But the way that this roster is constructed, you need him to play well. And like you said, not to go back on or repeat what you said. Yeah, if he is, if you can trade him, or if if you want to trade him, that means he's struggling. And then we forget he's making 50-something million this year. And then talking about this upcoming season, and then the next 3 seasons is when his extension kicks in for 192.9 mil. And then you look at Paul George, he has 3 seasons and 162.2 million.
Yeah.
No one in their right mind is going to take those contracts right now. No one. Sorry, you're stuck with them, y'all. You're stuck.
I just want to acknowledge one comment. Bay, I'm not going to put it up there, but perfect analogy, Keith. His ex did exactly what you displayed or talked about. So there you go. 3-time, what's up? Duke, what's going on? Or Duck, I don't know. I'm sorry. What's going on? Lamar, what's popping? Nice to see you guys in the chat. We appreciate you guys joining us for this live show. Locked on 76ers. We'll be back with you guys next week. Make sure you guys are reading all things from Keith Pompey on Inquirer.com. Phillies fans, I got you covered tonight with your Locked On Phillies postcast after an Apple TV game. So I'll be a little bit more descriptive more descriptive than I usually am with the Phillies and Yankees starting this weekend series at Yankee Stadium. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. For Keith Pompey, I'm Marc Farzetta. Have a wonderful week, and also stay cool. Going to be a hot one in Philly. See you guys.
Yeah.